A few days ago, I started to do an analysis of people who comment on my TikTok and Facebook, and I realized 7 segments that as much as I'm talking about civic content in Kenya, I have people who respond to me asking that I get them a husband. In Australia, single mothers, there's a huge number. And that's what we'll be tackling today. I will ask my wife here to introduce herself, but there were other segments, people asking on how to relocate to Australia, others asking for financial help, and etc. So I will ask my wife to introduce herself because we want to deal with the issue of single mothers and getting a husband for our Kenyan people or African people. So I have 12 questions here. But I would want you to introduce yourself because I want you to help us unpack this issue of single mothers.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Carol, and I have 3 children. And born again, spirit-filled, demon-chasing, heaven-bound. More importantly, I think just want to say thank you to Simon for having me here, just to go through questions concerning marriage and singlehood. So, yeah, that's who I am. Thank you.
Okay, so I will begin by asking you, in your view, what is marriage ultimately about? Maybe you can guide me on that. And is it about survival, companionship, covenantal purpose, or in your view, what is marriage all about?
I think in my view, it's to do with a covenantal partnership according to the Word of God. And also the Word of God says that it is not good for a man to be alone. So companionship, fulfilling the purpose that God has designed for marriage. And Ephesians is very explicit in terms of how a man and a woman would live together. So submission from the wife and love from the man. So, it's a combination of things. It's multi-pronged, I think. So
okay,
yeah.
Okay, that's good. So I want to ask, what do you think drives African women, Asian women to look for husbands abroad? What are they truly searching for?
One, I think some people want to run away from their restrictive cultures. Secondly, I think it's also financially driven, and maybe also running away from their traditional norms and beliefs. But I sometimes get the feeling that it's very financial. They're looking for somebody who can support them and support their children, perhaps, looking for a better future, which they might think is they don't find in a third world country. Yeah.
That's a good answer. Let me ask, because I've been noting that the Aussies and the British prefer to marry Asian women more than they want to marry the African women. What are they looking for in the Asian woman that's not there in the Kenyan Kikuyu? Particularly, I want to bring the Kikuyus because you are half of Kikuyu.
Yeah.
What's happening to the Kikuyus that they don't want to marry the Kikuyu woman and they want to marry the Asian, the Filipinos, the Chinese?
Look, I think it's also a question of the upbringing, and I find that, and I want to say African women, I find that we are becoming more maybe confrontational, more independent, and just our demeanor is different from the Asian woman. The Asian woman appears to be more docile, somebody who is easy to handle and to manage. So that's just from the top of my head.
No, that's a very good one, because I think why are they not marrying the Aussie women? Obviously, they are running from that independent, what did you, other word you used? Independent, controlling, whatever it is. Confrontational.
The women's lib.
Yes, and things like that.
Yeah, whereas I think that Asian woman is, I would think, would be more towards, the biblical woman, submissive, honorable, and this is what we see. I mean, in the open. I don't know what happens in the secret place.
Yes.
But when I look at Eastern Asian women, they're very docile, very amenable.
Yes.
Very humble.
Yes. So we have examples in the church we attend. We have a few couples. I have a friend I'll be seeing now. He's married to a Chinese woman. I lead a team, but one of the team leaders, the father has married a lady from Singapore. He's from Scotland. So the very advantage of being entrepreneur for a Kikuyu woman, being independent, being business minded, becomes a disadvantage. In a manner of speaking.
I would think so, yeah, in a manner of speaking. It may work to her disadvantage to it, which is unfortunate because the Bible in Proverbs 31 also speaks of, the industrious woman, the woman who goes out, sees a field and purchases it. So it's unfortunate that sometimes that might work towards, against a woman.
So there is, what would you advise, before I move to the next question, what would you advise the Kenyan women or the African woman, how to position herself and how to position herself to be marriageable material for the Aussie, for the Briton, for the American, because I think that's the key issue.
Yeah, I think it's important to study the culture that you want to integrate yourself into, and their traditions and their beliefs. But I think more than that, for me, looking at the spiritual aspect of it and understanding what God's design is for a woman, and to prepare yourself in that regard.
In the case of marrying the African woman, if you are an Aussie, what would be the cultural expectations from both sides, and what would be the disappointments? What's an Aussie man? What is the nature of an Aussie man, and what's the nature of the African woman, and what would go missing if the two come together?
Of course, what first comes to mind, unfortunately, is the spiritual aspect. Africans, we tend to be very spiritually oriented, and for me, this is funny that it comes from me because I'm half African and half Australian, so it's a funny space to be in. But I do want to acknowledge that my African heritage, we're more spiritual and more inclined to the things of God.
Yes.
Whereas the Aussies tend to be very lax in that regard.
Yes. So there would be a disappointment on the part of the woman. Expects the man to be spiritual, and he wants to be lax. He's laissez-faire.
Yeah, and also the gender roles. Also, I feel like gender roles might be a big one.
Yeah.
And it's really just cultural. The way we are socialized in Africa is different from the way like the white, the Australians or the Europeans, Americans are socialized in terms of gender equality or inequality.
Yes.
So that could bring a tug of war.
Wow. How do you see the difference between transactional marriages and covenantal marriages, and where do we draw the line? Is marriage transactional in any way, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a bomb. Of course, marriage is transactional. Let's face it, we're living in the world of transaction. So I think, to be fair, I think that yes, marriage is transactional in the sense of women want to have financial stability. A man wants to have free sex. A woman wants to have children in wedlock. So there's some kind of transaction there. So in terms of the papers, or there are people who also want to get married because of citizenship, for example, or getting legal papers. And for me, that's a big no-no. But yeah, I do believe that marriage, in a manner of speaking, is transactional on many levels.
You have brought a very, very interesting topic in terms of papers.
Yeah.
Is it wrong for a woman to expect to get citizenship from like Australia, from Britain, from USA. Is that a wrong thing? Is it that because you said marriage is transactional,
Yeah.
does that make it less covenantal? Let's discuss this a little bit deeper.
So according to the precepts of God, marriage should be covenantal. They should be about what God's purpose is for you in marriage.
Yes.
He is the author of marriage. So marriage is a covenant. And so marriage should be and ought to be covenantal. And God has a purpose and plan for a marriage.
Yes.
However, is that the bigger picture? Is that the way people view
No.
marriage? Of course not. So in terms of papers, in terms of citizenship or permanent residence in a different country, for me personally, I think it's wrong because this is not what God desires of us. When you get into a relationship, heading to marriage, this should not be about, oh, I'm going to get papers, oh, I'm going to get an ATM, oh, I'm going to, it's wrong. Marriage should be a covenant. So for me, I don't think it's right to pursue men or women for papers.
So are you saying then the Kenyan women who want to be married abroad it's wrong? Because in essence what they want is a better life, and that will have to come with papers, and the papers give you a better job in the foreign land and blah blah blah. So how do you remove that out of the question? Can you matchmake somebody in Africa or Asia to an Aussie here? Obviously, will papers be part of the story or not?
I would imagine the papers are part of the story. Obviously, I mean, if somebody wants to leave Kenya, for example, to come to Australia for a better life, for financial stability, for a husband, obviously there's that whole issue of papers. Obviously, so I think that comes into that. It plays into that.
Yeah.
But whether it's morally correct, I mean, look, in terms of Christ and his precepts, it's not right, I think.
On your part, if you are doing matchmaking between an African woman, maybe a single mother in Africa, and an Aussie here, what would you advise both of them in a very practical and honest way? Because what is the Aussie looking for? And we are talking this, and what is the African woman looking for? Would you bring these issues into like papers and finances and stuff like that?
I think it's important. I think it's important, the initial meeting, when you introduce them, even if it's online. I mean, we can do it via Zoom, via Teams, you can do a video call. It's important to bring some of these issues up in terms of what are your expectations, because a lot of marriages also fail because of unmet expectations.
Yeah.
So why don't you get those expectations out of the way? Let's, for example, say I'm a lady, I want to get married to an Australian. So what are my expectations of him? And a paper's part of that expectation. Does he want children or not? Is it his first marriage? Is it your first marriage? I mean, there are things that one can discuss, initially, so that that you're on the same page.
Yes.
Instead of maybe somebody flying all the way to Australia, and then first of all, you come and find he's a big fat pot-bellied old man, and maybe this is not what you are signing up for. Or she comes and he finds it's not even her natural hair, for example. She's been wearing a weave. I mean, I think what I'm saying is, in speaking jokingly, is just to say that I think we need to, lay ground rules, so that then we know that, is this a potential match or not?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Why do you think there are so many single mothers in Kenya today? And how does this reality influence women's decisions to seek husbands abroad?
Ooh, that's a loaded one. But I think I kind of feel like a lot of Kenyan women, and possibly African women as a whole, have moved from the dependency stage we were in many years ago. We were very financially dependent on our husbands, but that's not the case anymore. A lot of women have made lives and careers. They've pursued careers and then maybe found out in their late 30s or early 40s, or they want a child or two because time is running out. But I think that they then look for people out of the country. Maybe they've locked themselves societally out of their the circle of friends, for example. Maybe people have gotten married and moved on and had children, and they haven't. So possibly looking for greener pastures. That could be one.
Yes.
Two, maybe they have a misconception that the man out there is more loaded than the man at home. There's the issue of culture. Maybe they feel confined in our culture, so they want to go out maybe to a freer culture. I mean,
yeah,
those are just my quick thoughts.
Those are good ones. There is an issue of fatherhood in Kenya. The issue of casual relationships, people relating casually, not wanting covenant.
Yes.
The whole context of Kenya, is it that the ratio of men and women, being that the women are more, the issue of women pursuing careers, and by the time they want to get married, maybe it's late.
Or even men not wanting to marry single women.
Or men not wanting...
Or single mothers, sorry.
Or single mothers. So okay, you are a single mother before.
Yes.
Maybe you can maybe bring a little bit of light of the experience as a single mother. What went through your mind in terms of that season of being a single mother? What challenges? What were you looking for? At one point, I think when we met, you told me you had given up on the issue. So I just paint a little bit of picture for my viewers.
Wow.
because I would want them to understand a little bit of history on that, and it will help them understand a little bit of your journey.
I mean, look, yes, so I was a single mother before I got married, and, by the grace of God, met this handsome man who made me his wife, and I'm eternally grateful to God. Difficult season because a lot of men don't want to take care of children who they have not sired. But I find it very interesting that you sire a child, walk away from the mother, and so who do you suppose is going to father your child? So that one is tricky. So I found myself in that space, being a single mother, and when people realize that you're a single mother, if you're getting into a relationship, they draw back because they don't want to take care of somebody else's child. So it was a difficult season for me. But, what can I say? Everybody has their own journey. And I think that people should not judge single mothers because you have not walked that journey. You haven't walked into those in those shoes. So it's important to sort of take an overview of a woman when you meet her. Even though she has a child, find out what went wrong. Maybe the father died, maybe he was an abusive man. I mean, there are so many reasons why women become single mothers. So, and I think for me, it was a difficult journey. You feel isolated, you feel judged, you feel ostracized, you feel victimized. Absolutely, yeah.
So in the locally, in terms of by the time you are a single mother, was there a challenge in terms of the market being less, being minimal in terms of not at all?
I don't think so. The men are there, but it's their perception of single mothers.
Also, the issue is they are there. So you're telling me that maybe you are, just for example, you are 45 and you are a single mother, that the men are there in terms of widowers, in terms of divorcees,
in terms of single men, single
seniors. There are single men at 45.
I know quite a few people who are single at 60 plus. So they're there.
So it doesn't. The market is not.
Honestly, I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. It's a choice. It's a choice that a man makes. Is he going to make a home with this woman with her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children? Because we discovered in South Africa and Botswana that women start having babies very early, maybe 14, 15, 16 years of age. By the time they're maybe 20, they have 2, 3, 4 kids. And that's a non-issue, by the way, we saw in South Africa. A man, in fact, for him, the more fertile you are, the better it is for him. So, but that's what it is. It's the man. I think it's the way men are socialized, that they don't want to sire to take care of a child they've not sired. However, what about the children they've sired? Who takes care of them? So the men are there.
Okay, that's a good one, because I was of a different view that possibly the market is less for the women, but she has said that she believes the market is there, but it's an issue of choice. Do you believe matchmaking is biblical? And because people are asking us to get them a husband
and a wife,
or a wife, is that biblical? And should people go to the Christian dating site, Christian Cafe, and all those? We have a member of the church who is an Aussie, who got as an African woman from what do you call it? Christian Cafe. What would be your advice on that?
Okay, so first of all, matchmaking is biblical. And I mean, you can see, was it Abraham who sent his servant to get a wife for Isaac and encountered Rebecca? So there are many stories like that in the Bible. So I believe it's biblical. I mean, I don't have a problem with matchmaking. It's setting ground rules, really. As we said earlier, you just set the ground rules and see if there's a potential match.
Yeah.
So maybe I wouldn't use a dating site, but certainly using your network of friends and church, community.
Yes.
For me, I would certainly matchmake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've heard should certainly matchmake. So obviously, if you're watching and you're Australian man who is single, of age, Carol here can connect you to some good African women. I think we have those. I think the group I see, a bigger group, is the African single mothers and singles. I don't know whether we have an equally big number of Australian single men. Would you think of how to tap into that? Is it something that is there, or it's something we have not explored?
I think we haven't explored it really. And the extent, I think, of us socializing with Australian families or men and women has been predominantly in church.
Yeah.
And there are not too many single, Australian men. They're there, of different ages and categories. There's the divorced ones, there's, widowers, there's a young single. But I think it's not something we've typically explored.
Yes.
But it's,
Room for thought.
Room for thought, yeah.
Okay, what else would you like to share with the viewers regarding this subject matter that maybe we've not covered?
No, I think for me, ultimately,
Yeah.
what I think is so important is to understand God's purpose and plan for a marriage, and to wait on Him, be in the waiting room of God, so that He brings you the right person. Don't make a hasty decision simply because you think time is running out, or you're a single mother or single father, or whatever reason you want to use. I think it's important, ultimately. Yes, get matchmaking done. Yes, try and pursue 1 or 2, 3 different, potential spouses. But at the end of the day, isn't it just so important to be in sync with God's will for your life and for your marriage partner?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So where is the catchment area for a single mother? Would you say go to church, local church, join? What would you advise for somebody who is, because loneliness is a big issue.
Yeah.
What would be your practical advice to somebody who is out there and they are saying, I want to be married, but I'm not seeming to be noticed? What would be practical steps towards getting now married as a single mother?
Look, I think I would start with spiritual maturity, emotional maturity, socializing yourself, especially in church, because you want a godly man or a woman, if you're born again, if you're a Christian. And also look for maybe events, local or international events that you can attend, possibly, because a lot of the communities, like the Kenyan community, we have a lot of events, like in Melbourne. So plan to attend some of those events.
Using your own story, what practical steps of how possibly we met to guide people practically on how they can meet? Just maybe share your story so that people know what steps they can take in order to get a partner.
Okay. First of all, the way we met was through a friend who was in Malawi with my husband. They were both living in Malawi doing their own things. She was working for the UN and he was in Bible school. So for 1 year, the Kenyan community were meeting, and so they met in that context. And so she would often tell my husband to pray for her friend Carol, who was going through stuff. And so eventually, when she came back, she spoke to me about him, and then one day, she took him to church, to where we go to church, and that's how I met him. I met him in church. And of course, having had my friend speak about me to him for 1 year. So, what are the things that one might want to do to try and look for a partner? I mean, obviously, for one, get involved in church, get involved in the events and the community of church, because obviously there's a group of people there who are looking for partners. Two, I'm sure networking, like my friend networked. So this union was as a result
of Kingdom Age Network of Apostles and
that too. It was networking. So yeah. So also network. Your friends are a potential conduit for a spouse. But also I think it's important to understand the purpose and plan for and God's design for marriage. And so being spiritually aware and being spiritually mature, as well as emotionally mature, because if you're emotionally immature, you'll go in and out of relationships for the rest of your life because you don't know how to present yourself as a woman. Many people present themselves as young girls, and they could be older, but their disposition is like a young girl. So you need to be emotionally mature, and also get involved in events, community events. Like in Melbourne, we have a lot of Kenyan events, so a lot of us go to these events, and there are people who mix and mingle. So that's also another way. So the way you socialize yourself is important.
Yes.
In terms of getting or meeting a potential partner.
Wow, thank you very much. Last question that has just come up before we sign off. What, in your opinion, have you brought on board as a single mother into the marriage that would have been different if you were not a single mother?
Yeah. I think that being a single mother also grounded me and made me more responsible, more mature, more compassionate, more patient, because now you're dealing with a child alone. You are responsible for that child. You're responsible for decisions, life decisions for that child. So you also the issue of becoming. How can I put it? I was able to possibly create a family. It was easier for me to maybe create a family, if you understand what I mean, because already I had a family, and so it was easy for me to maneuver or to navigate, the family unit. Yeah, I think so.
So there is value. You are saying that a single mother has values because
resilience, patience, compassion, responsible. I started doing my budgets more effectively, financial management, because now it's not just me, there's somebody else that I need to take care of.
So there is value there's value they can bring into a marriage.
There's value they can bring into a marriage, yes.
Thank you very much. You look so beautiful. Thank you for agreeing to come to my interview. And my viewers, please do send those questions. We want to see and hear from you. And when you ask about these matters, at least we have my wife here. She can answer better. And I'm sure if she has a way of networking, she can. But we are going to think and pray about it on how we can be of help, but more importantly, beginning with prayer. So the Lord bless you and have a good afternoon. Simon and Carol coming to you from Melbourne, Australia. Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.